Whoa, hello, Sam here in the Reloved Guitars workshop, or shed as it's commonly known. Welcome back. If you've watched any of the other videos, you're a very sad person. No, if you've watched any of the other videos, then you are very dedicated. But you'll see that they cover the servicing and the setups that I do, or Thomas and I do, on basic budget guitars that have been completely unloved mostly, and we tend to get them in that sort of condition. It's not that they've been badly treated by somebody, but in fact they've been treated pretty reasonably well normally and played hard, but the real problem is that they tend to come from the factory and the shop without any setup at all, and as a result they carry with them problems that make them practically unplayable, which is why most young people get fed up with them very quickly and get rid of them in the hope to find something that actually plays in tune, for example, or something that has an action that isn't a mile high at the 12th fret. So at Reloved Guitars we acquire these guitars and we put them right with a small number of proven techniques which work every time. They just require time to do. There's no real magic, but the magic is in the result. We can take any economy budget guitar, pretty much any guitar, no matter how cheap and nasty you think it is, we can take that guitar and do those few core treatments to it, and there are a certain number of things we can do which make them into fantastic playing guitars, real nice guitars that you want to keep. Because the budget guitars have all the basic components in place, they're just badly set up. So let me introduce to you the first of this week's 3 newcomers. In fact, there's going to be 4, but that'll be on Monday. So yeah, straight into this one. Introducing a Squire Fender Squier Strat Affinity series in a very nice metallic blue. This is slightly grubby guitar, but otherwise in really nice condition. This is one that I bought on eBay. Picked up from London this week from a nice guy in Euston. One of my many trips around the home counties or around London after work to pick up guitars. It's a really nice way of seeing parts of the country I haven't ever been to before, including wandering down the main street in Euston. I've forgotten what the road was called. Anyway, so this is a real nice condition guitar. Again, it's one of these that I could take back to the office in London and play for a few hours straight away. It does have a high action. It's not the way I'd like it. It's a little harder to play than it needs to be, but everything else about it is in pretty good nick. Again, the action over the first fret is a little bit high too, and we'll cure that as well, and we'll take care of all the uneven frets that I can guarantee you it's going to have, because every single guitar we have through here has the same problem. So the Squier Affinity, I'm growing to like these Squier Affinity Strats more and more the more I see them. So much so that I kind of avoid the basic Strat with no series attached to it, and I go for these. I also avoid the Bullet Strat, which is a ropey piece of crap in my book. Bullet Strat doesn't even have decent tuners. These are the first point at which you usually get the fairly good quality sealed tuners, which make quite a bit of difference to tuning stability. And the build quality on these Affinities, I think, is really quite good. They also tend to have a lot of them. They came in kits, but a lot of them were HSS like this, or various combinations. Some of them are H&H, HSH. But this is a humbucker single coil combination, and I think that's really useful. It gives you a nice, powerful set of tones down here in this position, and then a good mixture up to the more conventional Strat type clean tones in the neck and middle pickup. Just a really clean and very well made guitar, and a lot of the guitar buffs criticise these, and I think, if I'm honest, I think these are much more, they're criticised much more because of the crap setup that they come with. So it's all very well Fender saying this is a really good guitar, look how well it's made, and then it comes with guaranteed uneven frets, high action to cover up those uneven frets, not massively exciting pickups, but adequate, and then a nut height which is a bit crap, and a neck relief that's maybe set wrong. Now if you put those things together, then it is a crap guitar. And the reviewers will always say that. They'll shun them, saying, oh well, I picked up a vintage Squire reissued, or whatever they call it, vintage modified Squire, and it was 1,000,000 times better, or a classic vibe Squire Strat, 1,000,000 times better. Well, it is, because one of the things that you can say about those classic vibe Strats is they are set up better out of the factory. So somebody's put some time and money into it. But not these, they come out as they come out. So what we'll find when we do this is that it has a full complement of uneven frets. Never yet found a guitar, in nearly 30 guitars now, we haven't found a single one with no uneven frets. This vintage baby here, right, vintage brand, is the only one so far, the nearest one to having no uneven frets, and even that was about 15% of the frets were came up as uneven. So we're going to find a bunch of uneven frets. We're going to make some adjustments to the nut slots here so that the action over the first fret is better than it currently is. It's not too bad. And we're going to make some action changes here, which, because we'll have leveled the frets, we'll have much more options to take this down to a really slick, playable level. And we'll clean the whole thing up, and it will be a beaut by the end of this weekend. So that's number one on our list this weekend, is this lovely Squier Strat by Fender, the Affinity series. Nice, unblemished, not a mark on this thing. A bit grubby, but no chips, no dents, well looked after. Thank you to Sascha in Houston, a great guitar. Yeah, this is a pleasure to work on. This will be a nice piece of guitar by the end of the weekend. Well, hello. Welcome to the Reloved Guitars workshop with me, your host, Sam. And here is the place where we take unloved old budget guitars and give them some reloving and turn them into really playable instruments. And I'm going to kind of talk to you as if you haven't seen any of our videos before, but the video you're about to watch is the setup, the assessment setup of a pretty nice but average budget guitar, the Squier Strat Affinity series, made by Fender, and one of the Fender range, or the Squire range, that actually is pretty good basic guitar. So we're going to fire off into this guitar and take it from being not too bad as it stands, but not too bad, but with a bit of a high action and probably all manner of uneven frets and a bit grubby and a little bit unloved. So we're going to take this guitar and pile straight into reloving it and making it into a really nice playable guitar. And the kind of, as I said, the rationale behind what I do here is to, I guess, to prove, I'll just point this down a bit, just to prove that you don't have to pay a fortune to get a decent guitar that plays really well. And I guess the way the world is set up is that the people who sell expensive name brand guitars, of course, want you to believe that in order to have a decent instrument you have to pay a lot of money. But that isn't the case. And I started doing this a few months ago, and I had quite a strong theory or a hypothesis that these guitars contained all the basic components necessary to make a really precise and accurate and well playing, good sounding instrument. And my feeling was that while they had all the components, they were just badly put together, i.e. badly set up. And so I began by buying a number of, I guess, the most boring and unloved of all possible guitars. Well, there are some more hated ones, but a pretty absolutely bog standard guitar, the Fender Squier Stratocaster, in boring ordinary black, and that was the first 2 or 3 I bought. And I bought a couple of different kinds because I wasn't really sure which were the bog standard ones at the time. So I bought there are a number of different types. There's the basic Squier Strat, which doesn't have any series name, and it's just called the Squier Strat, and that seems to be quite variable in quality. And then you have the Squier Strat, the Bullet Strat, which is, my experience is really lousy quality. It's thinner, it's the thinnest of all the bodies and the lightest, and often has the cheapest parts of all. So not a nice guitar. And I think also in that collection, no, I think it was two. I think I started with 2 bullets and 1 Strat, and my intention was to just learn what it took to make them into playable instruments. And I'd had some experience working on a couple of my other guitars, one acoustic guitar in particular, that had taught me a few things that I thought would put me in a good position. Wow, these are jammed in. It's going to take a bit to get out. Yeah, so I'd learned a bit along the way in trying to get a couple of my own guitars playing, and I thought I'd have a look and see what it was I could do to these guitars to turn them around and make them into really good playing guitars. And that was a great experience, and so I set them up and sold them. Blimey. How are we going to get this out of there? It's such a pain. I'm going to have to poke a very small Allen key down the hole. Yeah, so I sold those 3 guitars. I set them up and then sold them, and they were well received, and people liked what I'd done to them. And so I carried on, this time experimenting with different kinds of Squier Strat and a few other guitars as well. So I particularly like the Vintage brand, of which I've got one in here, but I've got a couple of I've kept of my own which I really like. So Reloved Guitars was started to kind of prove up a point, and actually what's been really good is that point has been proven consistently since I started. So every guitar we've had through here has they've all been fairly, well, most of them have been budget guitars, and I've been able to do the same range of things to the guitar each time to make it play brilliantly. And at the present moment I've got about, I think about 10 or 11 sold via eBay with some really great feedback from really happy customers. So this video is to show you kind of what I do and take you step by step through. And the reason I'm doing it, notice cleaning things, the reason I do it is partly because it's not for entertainment. Don't expect anyone to watch these videos from start to finish, unless you happen to be the person who's thinking of buying this guitar right now, in which case I know that you'll be interested in the work that's gone into this guitar and what's right and wrong with it. So this video may be very useful for you. And the other person who may be interested in this video is somebody who's generally interested in playing and tweaking guitars, and possibly is looking to do a bit of work on their guitar themselves. And hopefully what I cover in this video, well, I know already has been useful to some people. So that's why I'm doing it. And a caveat in all of this is I know what I know through practice. I don't claim it to be the only way to do things, and I don't even claim it to be the best way. Some people have emailed me since I started doing this and suggested I'm doing certain things wrong, and very generously suggested other ways of doing it, and I find that very helpful. What I don't have any interest in is getting into a ego war with anybody about you know, the ultimate right way of doing things. I'm not into it for that. I'm into this to make these guitars play really well, and like the title says, to relove them into the kind of guitar that you'd want to keep and really enjoy playing, and actually a kind of guitar that you would immediately know the difference in terms of its playability. And that's the target for me. And when I see a customer pick this guitar up, some I don't get to see because it goes away, they're bought and they go away in a courier, but increasingly I've got people coming who I've done this work for their guitar, and they drop the guitar off, I do the work, and they take it away again. Increasingly I'm getting to get the feedback directly from them of how pleased they are with the result. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because it's such a great buzz to improve somebody's guitar. I think a really good example would be a customer who contacted me just recently, and Malcolm, you'll know who that is, but had come by my contact details by watching one of the YouTube videos just like this, and I described the problem that Malcolm was having with a lovely guitar that he bought, a custom guitar, and because I described the problem that he recognised exactly, he got in touch with me, brought his guitar, and I was able to liberate it for him, you know, in short, make it play without any intonation problems. So it was kind of giving him a guitar back where he didn't really have the full guitar before. So to be able to do that and to see somebody get such a thrill out of their newly liberated guitar is just brilliant, and that's what this is all about. And on top of that, like I said, there is absolutely no reason why these basic guitars, as you can see, this is starting to look really nice, it's starting to clean up beautifully. And we haven't even really got started, so there's no reason why a basic budget guitar like this Fender Squier Affinity Strat shouldn't end up being a really, really nice instrument, and it will be when I finish with it. So what am I going to do to it? Well, you can see straight away that I'm cleaning it as I go. So the first thing I'm doing is just getting a sense of what's right and wrong with it. I plugged it in during the week so I know the electrics work. I don't really have any need to take this apart. The electrics are fine, there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing structurally here that I need to take apart to do anything with. The only thing I'd like to do is to I'd like to polish underneath these bridge saddles, so I might take them off. It wouldn't take me too long, but I like doing this because it gives me a chance to clean them, and cleaning a guitar like this is a really nice way of just paying it that extra little bit of attention. And it really makes a difference, makes it look new, makes it look well cared for. And what does it take me? 5 minutes extra, something like that, 10 minutes at most. So what I'm doing is I'm taking off the individual bridge saddles. Now in doing this I'm messing up the intonation settings, the different positions of each saddle, but that's okay because I'm going to set those myself at the end of this little operation. Okay, so we have a short one at either end. That's just worth noting. The legs on the saddles at either end are shorter than the ones in the middle. So just as long as I know that, I'll be able to put them back in the right place. All the rest then are interchangeable, which is cool. So how do I make the guitar from a bit of a boring deadpan guitar into a really, really playable guitar? Well, the secret is all around the neck. The neck is really where your guitar is made. Of course the pickups are really important. A guitar with, for an experienced musician, a guitar with boring pickups or lousy sounding pickups won't be very appealing. But these Squier Strats have very, very acceptable basic pickups. This is a humbucker single coil arrangement, or an HSS. And that actually, I think, is a really, I've been enjoying playing these when I get them, because that arrangement gives you a bit of extra sort of growl down at the bridge position. So you don't get that with with the normal three single coil setup on most the basic Strat. So the HSS configuration is nice and gives you a bit more tonal range, and that's nice and shiny. Why not get it clean? Nothing else needs altering on this just now, so just really done this for the sake of cleaning it up. Why not? And I'm not going to take the scratch plate off. What I will do is take the neck off in a minute, because I definitely want to have a go and make sure I do the whole treatment on the neck. So, of course your electrics have to work, but the real secret of what makes your guitar playable, or really shapes the experience of the guitar, is, yes, partly how it sounds, but it's also how it feels to play. And the feel of the guitar, right down to what it actually feels like in your hand, and the playability of it, are really, really dependent on the quality of the neck. And a tiny variation in the settings of the neck, or the settings of the action of the strings, for example, can completely change and mess up the playability of the guitar, such that you just don't want to carry on trying to learn on it if you're a learner, or that you just hate the way it feels if you're a more experienced guitar and you just don't want to progress with it. Now, before I take this neck off, I'm going to put all of these little things back on, making sure I know which are my two shorter ones to begin with. And they actually were already set in a fairly nice little staggered arrangement of reflecting the height of the radius, the shape of the guitar neck. So I'm just going to see if I can just notice which is which and recreate them. Actually, that's probably that way around. So I feel, yep, I'm just going to put them back in. I think that's probably the way they were. It's not that important. So yeah, the main work that I do then on these guitars is to work on the neck. And what are the things that can go wrong? There's a combination of things, and individually they can make the guitar difficult to play. Together they can make it nigh on impossible, and so bad or unpleasant you just don't want to play it. So kind of worth thinking about it in a couple of different ways. The first one is that the action of the guitar, if the action is set too high, your experience of the guitar will be, especially as a newcomer or if you're a learner, it will be really difficult to press the strings down onto the fingerboard or to fret the notes you want, and playing chords will be really, really hard. And everybody knows what it's like to have played a guitar with a really high playing action. It's just not pleasant at all. So that playing action is set in two places, but mainly it's set down here at the bridge. So often it can be set really high, or the bridge, the neck itself can be positioned wrong, so that the result is a very high action. So however it's caused, a very high action makes it very, very difficult to fret the chords and notes, and I think it's one of the things that puts people off. It's where your fingers really hurt after trying to play for a few minutes, and if your fingers hurt, why are you going to want to carry on persevering? And also, when you're starting to learn the guitar, it's hard enough as it is to get all your different parts of your hand to make the notes ring out cleanly. If you're trying to do that and you're battling strings that are so high that you've got to scrunch them down onto the deck with loads of force, then all of that is going to make it harder. So the playing action is one thing, and that, as I say, has a lot to do with the settings down here at the bridge. The playing action is also dictated by the way the strings pass over the nut, which is at the opposite end of the guitar. So that's one place where the height of the action is set, but this is another place. And if the strings, the action is too high here, you're also having to squeeze really hard to press down. But what also happens then, if that's the case, is that all the notes you finally squeeze really hard and fret the string and make a note, all the notes that you squeeze down on are slightly sharp. And that's one of the most common problems I've seen since starting doing this. And most guitars have some problem with that, even this one that I've got, which I will make an adjustment to. And I make an adjustment by using these little fine files that I finally bought. I used to use it various different things, but these little files for cutting the slot down to the right height. And that's how I do it. There are other little tools, but they're a bit makeshift. Okay, so everything about this body part of the guitar is really good right now. The it's grounded out properly, the springs for the tremolo are in place. So what I'm going to do is just, while I carry on talking, is I'm going to take the neck off. And if you're going to do this, you're completely able to do it without doing any major harm, but just be very careful that you're supporting both the neck and the body, because they will come apart. Make sure your screwdriver is going the right way, and if you're going to do it, make sure the bit fits perfectly, and make sure that you're pressing downwards with sufficient force to stop the thing skipping and damaging the top of the screw. And then just loosen off a bit and then move to another one and do the same. So, two places where the action can be high: the nut and the bridge. If it's high at the bridge, it'll just be difficult to play. If it's high at the nut as well, it'll be doubly difficult to play, but it will also put your notes out of tune. And you won't know what's going wrong if you're a newcomer, even if you're experienced too. You won't know what's wrong and what's causing it. Your experience of it will just be that you can, no matter what you do and how much time you spend with the tuner on your phone or on your amp or a little portable tuner, your experience will be you can't seem to get it into tune. That's what it feels like. In reality, the guitar is in tune. It's the intonation that's putting it out of tune. But you won't be able to do anything about that unless you lower or adjust the slots on the nut. Now, notice I'm holding this quite firmly together. Take off the plate, and I'm going to take the neck out. But while I do it, I'm holding both parts so there's nothing can fall anywhere. And I'm looking, first and foremost, into the pocket to see if there are any shims. And the shim is a little thin layer, a thin piece of something. It could be a piece of tape or a piece of plastic or a piece of wood. Sometimes it could even be a piece of plectrum that's put in there. And its purpose is to raise the angle of the neck. So the neck is either tilting back further or it's straight. Now in this case, if you do find one, often they're stuck down, but the thing I'd recommend you do is, hello Morris, the kitten. Trouble's going to start now. What I recommend you do, if when you take the neck off, is if you find a shim, be sure to at least draw around it so you know where it was. If it falls out, then you've got to find it. But if it falls out, at least you've drawn around it and you can put it back in exactly the same place. If you put it back in a different place, when you screw the thing back together again, the geometry of your neck will be slightly different. Okay, so that body is in really nice shape. The only thing I'd want to do to that any further than that is to give it a bit more of a detailed polish. But I'm really happy. That was an immaculate eBay buy. Not always the case. Those who've watched any of these videos before will know occasionally something is a little bit blurred in the eBay pictures and you end up getting a dog of a guitar. And I've got a few hanging up that I'm desperately trying to redo the bodywork. Now with this guitar, some guitars I would take the tuners off to clean them. These are pretty clean already. They're the sealed Squire type, no markings or anything, but they are not at all bad. You can over time they tend to come a little bit loose. What you want them to feel is quite not tight, but you want them to feel firm as they turn, and you can make that adjustment by taking a screwdriver and just doing a small adjustment to the screw at the end of the tuning machine, just so that they all have a similar sense of stiffness as you turn them. And that stiffness doesn't make the world of difference. It makes it feel a little more precise, a little more controlled. If you go too tight, it's a bit tiring to wind on strings. So again, you can just backwards and forwards until it's right. So apart from that, I'm happy with the tuning machines on there. It's two little string trees. Again, they're pretty clean. I'm not going to take those off. And the tremolo adjustment lives in that little hole there, and we'll come on to that in a moment. So we know that the action of the strings is critical to turning an average guitar into a really good one. If we can get that action down to a level that's really low but doesn't doesn't mess up the sound of the notes. We want it as low as we can so that it still sounds and feels good to play. If we get it low, what it means is it would be much easier to play. You'll feel effortless playing chords down here. Instead of those big, struggling, tight, grasping hands, you'll be able to feel much lighter touched on the guitar. And that's a good thing, I'm sure. I don't really know anyone who likes it to be a great high action. So we know we're going to do something with the action, and we know that it has two places that we need to bear in mind as we adjust it. And we're not going to do that bit until the guitar's back together again. It's towards the end. So what are we doing with the neck off? Well, what we're doing is we're going to do something to these guitar necks which always needs doing, is never done in the factory, and is never done in the shop, in my experience, and only ever gets done if you find a guitar technician or luthier or whatever you want to call somebody who's doing this, and somebody who really recognises that it's important to do. And why? Because, well, let's say time is money, and I was just interested in making money, and you brought me your guitar and said, oh, can you make this play better? Well, I might take some gritted rubber, and I might smooth all these frets out for you and make them shiny, and maybe even do them up with a bit of work with the Dremel, so you get it back with really gleaming, smooth frets that feel wonderful. That's great. It's better than it was. Probably feels better, and I could probably adjust your action a little bit to improve it. Maybe tweak the amount of bend in the truss rod or the amount of bend in the neck so it might feel a bit better. But the one thing I've discovered since doing this, the kind of foundation, I suppose, of a good setup, is all of these frets are invariably, and by that I mean always, uneven. Now, I haven't got it done yet, but I'm going to put a leaderboard up behind me somewhere so you can see, like a Top Gear thing. First thing to tell you is, in 30 guitars through the workshop, every single one of those 30 has had uneven frets. So what does that mean? Well, uneven frets means that when they're pinched into place, into their glued slot, they're pushed into place and squeezed down, and then they stick, and then it's done. That process is not very accurate, and what it means is by the time it all dries and sets, the glue all sets in place, all of these frets are higher or lower relative to each other in different places. There are high spots and low spots. What does that mean? Well, it means that if you fret a string on this fret here into a low patch, and if that next fret is slightly high, then this string is going to, instead of rising over the top of that next fret and playing this note here, it's going to get choked by that fret. And sometimes it'll do that even if this fret isn't high. If this one's low and that fret's normal, it'll still choke it off because the tolerances, the gaps, are so tiny. What does that mean? Well, it means that to overcome those choked off, knackered notes, people tweak the action, because raising the action will save, if you like, it will raise the, let me have a piece of wood, it'll raise the angle, increase the angle that the string comes away from that fret, and therefore it will clear greater clearance on the next one. So imagine if that's your string with a really nice action. Okay, so you can probably see that it's touching this fret down here. Right? I'm laying it on that fret, and I'm just, let's say, imagine that the bridge is down this end here, and let's say that, I'm exaggerating, but let's say that's a nice action. You can see that the only fret it touches is the first one here, and the clearance on the next fret is minuscule, but it gets bigger over time. Now, if the next fret is high, it's also going to be touching, and the only way I can overcome that is to, I'm exaggerating, is to raise the action at this end. And so when I take my finger off, it goes boing, and the action's that high. Now, what we want is an action that's like this, but we then have to recognise that the corresponding angle is going to be very small. And to be able to get away with a small angle, i.e. this low action, we have to have these frets perfect. They have to be absolutely level in relation to each other. You'd be right asking yourself, if that's such an important thing as I'm telling you it is, why isn't it done? Well, you're going to see that putting this right takes about an hour and a half of hard work. So there's your first clue, I think. I mean, if it takes an hour and a half I'm going to charge for doing it, and it's going to be part of the price of this guitar when I relist it. And the people who if you're looking to buy this guitar, you already know why you're looking at this one, because it's more expensive than the other one next door to it on the listing. But the reason you're interested in buying it is because you probably know, or you're starting to get it, that what I'm saying here is quite important to how it plays, and you're willing to pay the extra money for this work to be done, so this plays as well as it can. Now that's you, right? You may be interested in quality, but the vast majority of the budget guitar buying market is interested, we're told, in price. If Squire, Fender, out there in China, I guess this one, yeah, this one's a Chinese one. So Fender, with their factory out in China, they worked a very tight business model, which ends up with this guitar being in a kit with an amp and a stand or a strap or whatever, for about 140 something pounds. That will be the profit margin on that for them will probably be very small. If they were to factor in an hour and a half of somebody's time in the factory to do this work, because I can't see a machine that will do it very well, that's going to put up either it's going to wipe out the profit margin, which means it's an unsustainable business model for them, or it's going to push up the price, and suddenly you are not going to be happy, well, not you, sorry, the youngster, the 19-year-old, 16-year-old, who is looking out there in that price competitive market, suddenly isn't going to pay £200 for a Fender Squier Affinity Strat, when all its competitors are knocking around at the £140 mark. So that is probably your biggest answer why this work hasn't been done, because you couldn't do it cheaply. You couldn't do it without some cost, and the business model won't tolerate it. Why am I doing it? Because I'm not aiming at the same buying market as you well know, because you're interested in watching what I'm doing here. If you are watching this, you're interested because you want a neck that has that imperfection taken out, so that you have that full range of action available to you to make it play the way you want, amongst other things. Okay, so but then you have to realise that most of these guitars are made for the price competitive or price sensitive newcomer market. They're not made for people like you or me, who this video is for. Right. So as I say, when you finish watching this, you'll get a medal for having stuck it out. But apart from that, you'll also see how much that goes into doing this. And there's no real quick way. And I'm going to do the quickest way. In fact, I bought some tools along the way, which are expensive, but they make it as quick as it can possibly be. And even then, it's not quick. So I'm at 31 minutes on this recording, and I'm going to start this process, and you can go from 31 minutes and see how long it takes till we go, ta-da, a finished neck ready to put back on the body. Right, 31 minutes, here we go. So, what do? First of all, we check to make sure the neck is straight. It probably won't be, because it's come off the guitar, and actually looking at it down now, it is slightly convex, meaning it's sticking up. And we want to take that convexity out of it slightly. And to do that, I am going to turn the truss rod adjuster clockwise. Okay, and that shows me my little diagram that I have to keep here because I'm hopeless at remembering this. If I want to take it from that down to flat, I do it counterclockwise. See, I'm going to write this out in full. I'm such an idiot most of the time. Right, I'm going to write it out in full because I see that as clockwise both times. That's probably my mistake. Counterclockwise. There you go. Made it explicit. I've already had somebody give me feedback on one of these videos who says, no, you're doing, no wonder it wasn't working, mate, you're doing it the opposite way. And I know, because I've written it like an idiot. Right. Take out the hump, counterclockwise. Allen key in here. Find the right size one first of all, which isn't that. It's going to be rustle, 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 fiddle, fiddle, fiddle. It's going to be this one that's directly underneath, oh yikes, which is now jammed in this little tiny useless toolbox that I can't get my hands into because it's too tightly packed. It's this one. Wasting time. Okay, that sits in there nicely. What did we say? Take the hump out, counter-clockwise. Stop. What's that? About a fifth of a turn at most. Welcome to the neighbours. and we'll have a look down it. It may take a little while for it to take effect, and we'll do that. While I'm waiting for it to take effect, I shall do something else useful. I'm going to need some new rags. I've made everything I've got filthy. While I'm at it, yeah, let's do something. We're waiting for the truss rod to take effect. I'm going to get some lighter fluid, naphtha, whatever you want to call it. It's a good solvent, and I'm going to use it to take out any grease on the fingerboard. It's a really good way of doing it. It acts as a really good solvent, but it's kind to the wood, so you don't end up with a, as I've used to do sometimes with different methods, you end up with a slightly dried out fingerboard. This way does the work you want, but leaves the nice colour of this rosewood, which you can see that's a pretty nice looking neck there. And then this is also bending the neck down as I'm doing it, putting some pressure on, so we may hurry the truss rod adjustment on as well. Now with your neck and this, if it's really grubby, you can get a toothbrush and put the stuff on quite thick and give it a scrub with the toothbrush if you've got ground in stuff or it's caught under the frets or whatever. But usually a rag and a finger does the job. And it's a solvent, and it evaporates pretty quickly as well. Okay, yeah, gone in a flash. Fair expense over time. It doesn't last very long. Okay, so that's that cleaned. Looks down the neck, and on one side, on the other, we're almost there. I'm going to give it one more little turn. Again, let's get a good bite on it. We don't ever want to strip out that hex shape. And I'm just going to do another fifth of a turn. It felt nice and solid, so it's clearly doing its thing. And then from where I can look at it now, on one side it looks absolutely dead straight, and the other side looks tiny bit, a tiny bow in it. And sometimes you're going to find that there's a slight flex or twist in the neck, in the sense that when one side's perfectly straight, the other can appear to be slightly bowed. You can't do anything about that. You're going to have to live with that twist, if there is such a thing. It's usually very, very minor. And what you're doing is a compromise between those two positions. Right, so we move to the next stage now. When we're working on levelling frets, we have to protect the fingerboard at all times, because you can see it's a lovely colour, it's a lovely piece of wood, and it's the kind of centrepiece of the tactile experience of playing this guitar. So if we mess it up, we're right into halfway to spoiling the whole experience of playing the guitar in a single heartbeat. So what we're going to do is we're going to take masking tape, and we're going to just pull some strips off to begin with. Masking tape, you can see, has a certain width, and we're going to lay that very precisely, quite a bit left over. You're going to lay it up to right to the edge of these frets, press it to the edge, and then stick it down. Leave it hanging out to the side. I'll show you why in a minute. And what I recommend you do is, for the first few frets, while the masking tape is still, or the gap between the frets is wide enough, then you can just lay this tape on in single strips. I've got this cutting board out because in a minute you can probably guess that I'm going to start needing to cut this down into half thicknesses, and then finally for here, thirds. But right now we're on the easy bit. I promise you it's the easy bit. It gets harder. Right? But what I'm going to do is, as we do this easy bit, I'm going to show you a little trick that saves a lot of time and misery a bit later on. If when you stick this down, you just go around the back and flatten it down on the neck, you'll find it very, very hard to get off later on, when an hour and a half later, when you've done all this great work and you're really, really desperate to see the results of your handiwork. You'll be struggling to peel it back off the neck. This way, what you do is you go around the back and you make a little tag like that. Sneaky. Learned the hard way. That will be easy to get off later on. So I'm going to do it with the first few and then I'm going to get into cutting mode because that's the most important bit next. I'm going to put this off to one side and get myself ready. And this is where you've got to be a little bit disciplined and rigorous, and it's definitely not an activity for people who can't be patient. If that's you, get someone else to do it. If you spoil this or rush, you're going to, the cost will at some point, it's going to be the nice finish on your fingerboard that's going to pay the price. So take your time, put on a radio program or your favourite music in the background, anything you need, but don't rush it. So I'm going to need on this job, I'm going to need 2 sets of half widths. I'm just going to cut this by eye because the good thing is because it's half width, even if I wobble the line, I've still got 2 flat straight edges either side of it. So that cuts quite nicely. Now the next piece is going to be done in 3s, and this is really quite a pain to do. First of all, I'm going to guess it because I can't be bothered to mark it, so I'm guessing roughly 1/3. And then to get this blade to follow the edge of this is difficult, not least because this cutting board has got loads of previous grooves, and the knife very often wants to just follow the old grooves and run off sideways. But I'm trying my best to get a single straight cut so that this is actually usable, and I'm just gauging it by eye. And you're going to find a lot of what I do with setting up guitars is done by eye. There's probably only once or twice that you'll see me get any measuring tools out. I might use a feeler gauge for a few minutes later on, but it won't be, I won't rely on it. I'll rely on feel and eyes. Okay, so we've got halves, halves and thirds. I'm going to go cut down the middle, cut in half, and we're ready to go again. Okay, and here we go. Straight back to it, and we'll go with the straight edges. So use the straight edge of the half strips, and if that doesn't quite work at this level, just triple it up with the half strips. It doesn't really matter, you've got loads of tape. Tape is cheap. See, there's a little gap there, so I'm going to just throw another piece on top of it to fill that gap, because you cannot afford to leave it sticking open. Now the next one will just about cover, the 2 bits will cross over, and then after that it'll overlap enough to cover any possible gaps. So it's fiddly, but very, very important to do this. There are little devices, and I'll show you one in a minute, little metal fret protectors, or fingerboard protectors, designed especially, you can see it, I've put masking tape all around it, so you could put this fret protector over the fret, and I've done this so that if I need to as a last minute thing, I can just stick it down like that, and now I can work, and I know the metal here is protecting the fret. It's not a bad last resort tool if you've got a last minute adjustment to make, but I found it's quite a pain if you try and use it for the whole of this job. Hence, taking the time at the beginning, in my case, to use masking tape seems to work perfectly. And you know, you have to put some time in at the beginning, but once it's done, you can be confident that this neck is, or fingerboard is safely protected from whatever you do next. And when you consider what we are going to do next, in terms of how destructive it is, we're going to use some pretty harsh file action, and then some Dremel shining action. You really will get why you want this protected. You know, and remember that the neck is, or the fingerboard, I'm sorry, is a very big component of the sensory experience of playing the guitar. You don't often think about it, but if you change it, or somebody puts a chip in it or anything, and they borrow your guitar and come back with something sticky on there or whatever, you'll know it straight away, because your fingers are incredibly sensitive, and you'll know there's been a change. So in all of this, my aim is to kind of just pay attention, really close attention to the bits that make up the fundamental experience, the main experience of playing the guitar, and that's the feel of it, as well as the sound of it. Okay, now you can see that I've run out of double stuff, so I'm going to need my triple cut stuff, but I'm going to cut one more side of double cut. And then once I've got this neck masked up, I'm going to take a break. I'll stop the video so we don't add on any time, because I want you to see the full length it takes to get this right. Not to make you feel all grateful and fabulous about the work I've done particularly, but it mainly so you can see, you get a real sense. I think it will make sense of why it isn't being done in the factory or the shop, because you can see what I'm doing, and you can probably, once you've seen it happen, you can probably then think to yourself, how else might it happen? Could you conceive of a mechanical way that this could happen? And I'm not sure I can, so I'd be interested to know if you can. But if there isn't a mechanical machine way or an easy machine way of doing it without rejigging the entire factory, then it sort of starts to explain why it doesn't really get done, because it's going to cost somebody somewhere too much. Now you can see I'm starting to draw on my resources, my three. I think I've reached a point where I can't do any more half cut pieces, so all the rest now has to be done with the third cuts, 1/3. The middle ones are in fact less, they've got no straight edge, and it sounds really anal, but since the middle ones have no straight edge, they're least accurate and running up to the fret, so kind of ignore the middle ones if you can, and just use the outside edges if we can get it all done with that. If not, we'll use the middle ones, but providing they're straight. Oh, well, actually, sorry, I cut them with a ruler, so they are straight enough to use. I should trust my own work. I'm thinking of times before when I did this and just did it by eye, and it really wasn't straight enough to use the middle piece. It was like a banana. Okay, we are nearly at the end of this part, and again, what did I say, 31? It's taken 15 minutes just to do this. Nearly 15 minutes. But you think of a much quicker way of reliably protecting this fretboard, and then you'd be into ways of saving time. I'm not sure I can think of ways of doing it. Anyway, right, almost there. You can see that when this is done for when we're doing this on a guitar with a set neck, it's completely different. Well, it's a little different. Then we have to make sure that we're protecting the bodywork where the neck goes into the body, because with the set neck, the body of the guitar runs a risk of getting damaged by the work we're doing with the frets inside the kind of area of the guitar itself. So what I tend to do when it's a set neck and I can't remove the neck, I tend to mask off quite a lot of the top half of the guitar, just so that no tools drop on it, or if they do, then there's some protection for them, for the lacquer. Seems to have worked so far, and to be honest, when a roll of this tape costs £1.10 or something, it seems to me a pretty small price to pay to avoid major trouble, particularly if it's somebody else's guitar. Okay, so I'm going to do the same trick here. I'm going to, where possible, I'm going to bend these things round, make them difficult, bend them round and just double join them together where possible. Won't always do that, sometimes they'll stick down on the neck itself, and that's tough. But if you can make them join in the middle, where possible, you'll get a much easier removal at the end. And when you get to this part of the thing, it's impossible to do that, so just getting the masking tape to stick down is pretty good going. So just push it around and stick it to the heel of the neck at this point. All you care about is that your fretboard is nicely protected, and that this masking tape isn't going to suddenly go somewhere and take off in a different direction. So there we are, that's my neck fully protected. Put it down here, just going to go along and make sure that it's all sealed down. Nice thing is it's got a couple of joins where we've used different sizes of masking tape, but it looks like it's all going to stay nicely attached, and that's me ready for the next stage. So I can put away my cutting board. After this, when I come back, we're going to be into testing whether this has got even frets or not. Okay, so we'll see you by the magic of editing in a fraction of a second. Miraculous, here we are back again. It's been hours. Actually, it's gone dark since, but for you it's been a split second. So welcome back. Here we are getting ready to do the important work on the neck, and we're just carrying on where we left, so keep an eye on the time. So we know that the neck is straight. We tweaked the truss rod. We know that everything, the fingerboard is completely beautifully masked off safely. And I'm going to be very careful with my marker pen because I've had some accidents recently which tend to go everywhere. So I'm going to level the frets by using a fret leveling file, and this is going to take off all the high material, or the high peaks of the frets, but it's going to take a bit off everything, and it's just going to bring everything down to the same level, and it's beautifully flat, made exactly for that purpose. Now because we're using this and we're going to do everything, I don't really need to mark up which frets are high and which aren't, because it's kind of irrelevant. But I'm going to do it because I'm doing a sort of survey, and I take a picture of each guitar as I do it with the pattern or the number of uneven frets marked on it, so that when I have a leaderboard set up somewhere here, you can see the top of the leaderboard is going to be that vintage V100 over there, which came in at an incredible low 15%. Here comes Morris the kitten. Worst is generally the Squier Strat. Hello. Morris is going to be really friendly, and it's going to slow the job down. But he's such a sweet kid. I love him. Morris. Morris, you going to talk to us? His dad gave him this pom-pom tail, and his sisters, of who there were, well, actually he had one brother with a proper tail and 3 sisters, one with a proper tail and 2 with stumpy tails, even more stumpy than this. But he's such a well-mannered boy, and he's a bit lumpy and thick compared to his sisters, aren't you? But you're a good boy. But he's also going to get in the way in a minute. You stay there for a minute. Okay, so Morris is going to stay there. I'm just going to swing down my camera from its superb Hollywood-esque mounting position. It's one of these days it's going to drop off, and I'm going to have to get something else sorted out. So here we go. What we're going to do is I'm going to use a fret rocker, and it's a piece of metal with 4 different lengths of sides on it. Now you don't have to use one of those if you don't want to pay £12 or so. You could use a credit card, which you could cut, if you're very careful, you could cut down to similar sorts of shapes as this. You need one long edge, which is kind of this one, and basically it's long enough to fit what you need, which is 3 frets at a time, and then you need to switch over to a smaller side, and you could cut a couple more different sides in it. So you can do it low tech. I've bought this piece of metal. I bought this piece of metal because I want to do this lots, and I'm going to do it. I want it to last. Okay, so the fret level checking is relative, so we're going to use these edges to check how level the frets are in relation to each other. So we make sure that we put it across 3 frets, and basically if the fret in the middle is high, it's going to rock either side and you'll hear it and feel it. If they're all level, nothing's going to happen. If the one in the middle is low, you aren't going to feel anything until you get to the next fret, and it will show up there. Isn't that right, Morris? Yes, I thought it was. He's got an amazing wet nose, and in bed he comes and rubs his wet nose down your face. It's quite sweet and disgusting at the same time. Right, if I put you down, can I get on with this so we don't spend too long? Right, okay, here we go. So I'm going to check out the frets, and I'm going to mark up where we find high spots. And here's one. Not much, just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark up as far as I find it, and then So I'm identifying the spot that's high. So it's not just the fret, but also the spot, where it starts and where it ends. Okay, so you can see I'm hitting on a couple of places already. Sometimes some guitars, the degree to which, or the extremeness of the unevenness is can vary quite a lot. Sometimes it's really, really extreme, and you know that you can feel in the amount it clicks. You can feel that that's clearly going to have been a problem for your guitar. Now these high spots that we're finding, the reason why they may not have shown up, or they may not have been apparent in playing the guitar, will more than likely be because of the height at which the action is then set. Because people generally, I'm sure in the factory, but also the owner of the guitar that you bought it from, will kind of naturally set the action as low as they can get it, and before the frets start buzzing or misbehaving, or the notes start misbehaving, and they'll stop at that point and back off a little bit. It's quite understandable. You don't want a guitar that buzzes and chokes notes. So quite often the guitar that you buy second hand, you will quite often find, or I will find certainly doing this, that the frets, the height of the action is pretty much a good indicator of the state of the frets underneath. So if the action is very high, I will usually find some significant uneven frets. Sometimes it will be very high because somebody's just messed around with it and they don't know what they've done, or they're not quite sure what they're doing, and they end up with a really horribly high action, not knowing where else to go with it. But as I say, usually it's a good indicator of the previous owner having got the playing action as low as they can get it, and then being forced to back off. So that they can hide any of the choked notes or buzzing frets. Okay, so these higher ones, at the moment, I speak too soon. We're looking okay, and I have to say, even where they are showing up as high, they're not extremely high. Nothing here's kind of jumped out and grabbed me as astonishingly high. This one's quite high, actually. Having said that, it's almost all the way. If I was particularly bothered, I could probably invent a system of marking to show just how extreme, where the worst, or to show that the degree of unevenness for any particular fret. But it's not really that important because we're going to take it all away in one go. There are a couple of ways of doing this, and you don't have to have all these clever files. You can get away with levelling your files with some quite old style techniques. So for example, you could do all of the job we're doing today with your credit card as the fret rocker, this file to do most of the work, and the sanding block, a sanding block, like this little rubber block, and a piece of 320 sandpaper. Okay, so that alone here, these three things, could be your kit for sorting all of this out. And I've seen it done, and in fact the first time I did it, it was as a result of being shown how to do it by I don't know his name still. He goes by the name of Chinese Guitar Skeptic on YouTube. A nice guy who does a lot of videos showing people how to spot or how to identify, and I guess he's kind of implicitly showing them how to buy Chinese brand fakes safely. But he's also showed me how to how to do this job very carefully and very accurately with this limited range of low-tech tools, which is great. And I was really grateful for that, because the video I learned how to do it, he just sort of put his guitar on his knee, sat on his sofa and did it right there and then. So quite nice to show you don't have to have a whole setup and loads of kit. But I keep having to call him Chinese Guitar Skeptic because I don't know his name. Oh well. CGS. Okay. So yeah, it was in a way it was a kind of an inspiration, because I'd been really worrying about, thank you. I've been really worried about how dangerous or big deal a job it was, or how complex it was. That's what will happen if I put this piece of wood on a pointed edge. Right. Okay. So now I'm going to just go back over the frets that I clearly see are high, and I'm marking up where they are high. And I'm just doing this for ease of seeing, because I want to take a picture of it. But you can see straight away that there's quite a few frets with some high spots on them, and some frets with mostly high all the way along them. And so it's clear that even though this is a nice budget guitar, with the Fender Squire quality, I'm just going to count this up. We've got, I shouldn't really count the first two because we can't really include them, so let's not count. We'll go, the cat's gone in the bag. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We've got 19 frets that we can measure, and of those 19 frets, let's just write this down. So we've got 19. We can't get to these two end ones, so we can get to them to level them, but we can't get to them to measure them. So we've got 19 frets, and out of 19 we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 out of 19. It's not very accurate, but 12 out of 19 are uneven. So on this particular guitar, I think we could safely say, if that was 20, we're talking about what is it? 50%? 50? What is it? I'm crap with maths. 12 out of 20. That's a fifth. That's 25. Fifth? No, it's a tenth. A tenth of 20 is 2. That's 12. That's 6. That's 60%. Okay. So a bit slow. So I'm going to jot it down there and take a picture of this, because that's my lead to go on the leaderboard. So Fender Squire Strat Affinity. I'll get, unplug it for a second. I'll get one picture which hopefully captures the whole pattern, and then I'll take another one so I can see the number. So 60%. That's not too bad, but it's certainly not great. But just for your information then, 60% of the frets on this guitar that are uneven, and they will have been uneven. It's not happened in the last owner's hands. They've not done anything to make the frets stand out unevenly. So this will have been like this from the factory, okay? And so you can see that 60% of the frets on this guitar have come out of the factory uneven, and that has, from that moment onwards, has an impact on how low anyone, whether it's the shop or the guy setting it up in the factory, or the shop selling it to you, or even the person who bought it and lived with it before you had it, that dictates how low you can have your action. The degree of unevenness will dictate how low you can set your action. So we're going to now put it right. So we've done everything. We've leveled the neck. We've then done a fret check for our information for the leader table. We've marked out the we have marked out just to see how much the frets, how uneven the frets are, and where that is. And now we're just going to go straight into leveling it with our big file. Okay, so there's no quarter given here. We do something first. We mark each of the frets across the top with marker pen, even the ones that we didn't find any. No, I'm doing this wrong. What am I doing? With me half asleep. It doesn't really matter. actually, in fact, I will do it. I'll mark all of them because we could have just marked the high spots so that we know when we're taking it away. But we're going to need to take away all of these frets down to a clean metal, right? And in doing so, we're going to take away all the high spots too. So marking the frets like this allows us to see where we've been and where we haven't been, and that's quite handy because we need to cut a bit off everything. So when that's dry, we take our file, and it's called the evil file, by the way, because Thomas is scared of it. We just hold it now flat on the deck, starting off to one side, and we just go an even pressure all the way down to the very end. And I can see that it's biting, but it's missing the edge, so I'm going to tilt it a bit over the edge. Almost a bit extreme, but I need to get to that edge to make sure we take any high spots off there. Okay, done. And then come in a bit, and we go all the way down the neck. The great thing about this is that you will take off all the high spots, as well as a little bit of the other frets that haven't shown up as high, but it's not going to do any harm to do that. Okay, and then just to make sure you get everything at the other end, you can start at the other end using your finger as a guide on the edge again. Just bring it back down all the way. And you want just a fair pressure, not too extreme, but your job is to make sure that it doesn't skip anywhere like that on the way back. You want a nice smooth travel, and once you're done, you can get a brush and get rid of all this swarf, because there's quite a bit of metal that comes off there, and ideally we don't want that getting into the resin, the lacquer of the guitar or anything like that. So once you've done that and you've taken a bit off all these frets, what we do know is that now they should be level. So I'm just going to go back. First thing to do is go back with your fret rocker and just check first of all the places you marked as uneven in the first place. And that first thing you want to notice is that those things should no longer be rocking at that point. It's really important that you make sure the ones you definitely knew were uneven are now sorted out, and just literally go through every single one of them to make sure. Again, you're going to need to switch the sides you're using, and you're trying to do this rocking thing as you go. Shouldn't be able to do any. It's quite good. And then finally you're switching to the narrowest bit, a tiny little bit there where I can see it didn't quite clip it, so there's a tiny bit of a marker still there. But apart from that, I could go over that with this one little slide with the file, and that's done. So there we go. Our fret's now perfectly levelled, and that's great. I'm going to draw a little diagram next to show you what we need to do. So the point being is, once we've got our frets levelled, what we've done is we've find a good pen for this. We've I'll draw it down here so you can see it. So let's have a look. We started with a fret that was, how do we do this? Okay, we started with a fret that was too high. Okay, so there's one next to it. One was too high, and we cut the top off that one to bring it in line with the other one. Yeah. So in a sense, we've scraped a bit off all of them, and we've left them all now at the right height, but with a big flat spot on the top with quite a few scratches. Now what we need to do, get another one of these, it's not very good diagram. So having scraped the top of the fret into a flattened point, a flattened shape. The problem with this is when the fret is nicely rounded like this, the string's natural point of sitting is right in the middle of the. I know what this looks like. Right, same every time I draw this, it looks rude, but your string's point of sitting is right on the middle of the fret, and it means that the let's just say this is from the top of the fret to the bridge. That is certain length, and that's that's the length. That's when you press the string down on there, that length from there to there plus the thickness of the string makes the note. Okay. When you have the fret that's chopped like this, your center point, the string start point, isn't there anymore. It's here. Okay, it's moved, and if we're still taking that distance from there to the bridge, let's say, that's now suddenly shortened compared to the first one. So if we just left it like that, there would be a number of reasons why it would be crap to play. One is because it's flat, and it would be horrible to scrape your string up and down there trying to do a string bend. But the other reason is you can see that distance has now shortened, because it will the string's first point of free rotation of the string will be from this edge of the flat spot. So we have to do something to this, and I haven't got a different coloured pen, but what we have to do, if you can see this, is we have to reshape this fret so that it's round again. I think it's a pretty good way of doing it. So it's rounded, but it retains exactly the same height as this flat spot. But in rounding it off again, what we'll do is we will keep the right height, and we'll drag the string's start point back to the middle of the fret. So we'll have to take off this material here. So we're taking some off the shoulders and the sides of the fret if you're looking at it in cross section. So this action here is called fret crowning or reprofiling, and we have to do that to every single fret. In the low-tech way, it's perfectly possible to do it using a three-sided file. That's how I learned to do it. And in a sense, you start on this side, you tip the file over, and the slanted side will cut away that shoulder, and I can stop before I get to the very top, and I can do the other side and tip it over and scrape away and stop, and then I will have cut the edges off that shoulder. We'll have a roughly rounded, reshaped fret, which is what we need. What's good about doing it this way is that because you're in control of the fret, you absolutely know whether you've touched the top of the fret or not. So you can get all the way down this, having reprofiled all of these, and know that you've never gone anywhere near the very top. And you can do that. You can know that by if we now paint again with marker paint across the top of all these frets, we would know that we'd left the tops untouched, because when we got to the end, there would be a thin strip. Our aim would be to leave a thin strip of black right in the middle of each fret, and you can see that if there's black there, it means we haven't cut away any metal. So that's our way of knowing. So this marker pen business is very, very handy for telling us where we are and what we're doing. The danger of it is, if you're not careful, it can run down the side of the fret and get onto the fingerboard, which becomes an absolute pain in the ass to get off. So we could have done it that way. That's the old money way. A little while later, I spent 25 quid and bought this tool, which has a concave file with diamond bits on it, and it's quite a short little one, but you can run it up and down the fret like this, and it will cut the shoulders away first, and when it's cut the shoulders away, it'll just start to touch the top of the fret, at which point you'd stop. I'm looking at this, it's a bit mucky. You've got this, it comes with this gummy rubber stuff which you use to clean out the particles that get stuck in it, but I can't for the life of me seem to get all of them out. But anyway, I tend not to use that one because I've bought a more expensive one from StewMac in the US, and that's this one here. And you can see it's a longer one, and it's pretty effective for doing this. The funny part about buying this one is there's a pretty grim story behind it. I bought it and went on a campaign to congratulate the guy who had manufactured it, or created it and made it, and I thanked him in feedback, I thanked him in a blog post, I thanked him on Facebook, I thanked him, I made a video demonstrating how quick it was, and he got really angry with me because I didn't use some word to describe it the way he thought it should be described, which was incredible. So we had this unbelievably big argument, and I ended up telling him basically pointing out that he'd kind of blown his reputation on what was I had said from the beginning it was a great little tool at the right sort of price. This is 3 times the price nearly, but I'll go where the custom service is really good, and it's much better with this. So here we go. We are now going to just pile straight onto this, and I'm going to use this file to round off the shoulders on all of these frets to get right to the far end, and leaving just the thin line of marker pen at the top, which tells me we haven't taken the height of the fret down anymore. And so as a result, at the end of this process, we know that we've reshaped the fret, but we've kept exactly the same levelness that we just spent precious time achieving with the marker pen and the fret file here. So well worth the investment, this tool. It's pretty quick. It takes off quite a bit of material. It's one to be cautious of, but as long as you're watching this marker pen carefully on the top of your fret, you can't go wrong, because if you don't take that down, or you don't cut that off, you know your fret is still at exactly the right height that it was a minute ago, and that's what the important thing is. This bit we're here now is just reshaping the fret so that the intonation point of the string moves to where it should be, and then we also have a rounder humped fret to then work on to smooth off with sandpaper. And also in doing that, we're also taking off, by reducing the flat spot on the top of the fret, we're also reducing down significantly the amount of longitudinal scratches that the fret file by default has to make in doing its job. And if we can reduce the number, or the area of those scratches, it makes the polishing job a lot easier. And you'll see in a minute that's a bit that also takes quite a bit of time here, because those scratches by definition are quite deep, because they take away quite a bit of material off the frets. But if we leave any of those, even the slightest hint of those scratches on these frets, it'll make playing guitar and bending strings less than satisfactory. So as I say, even if you're a newcomer to this, with a tool like this, you can have a real sense of confidence, because you can see what you're doing, and so long as that black strip is staring you in the face, you haven't gone wrong. If you kept on rubbing it and working at it, eventually the inside surface of this concavity will eventually take the fret top down, and you'll have undone your good work levelling the fret. So you're obviously keeping an eye on that, but in any one sort of swipe, you can't really go wrong, as long as you're keeping an eye on that fret top. I did a good friend's guitar the other day, and it was a 25-plus-year-old guitar that he's had and played since he got it way back in the 80s, and he'd worn the neck, or worn the frets out so much that by the time I came to do this part of the job, there really was hardly any metal left to work with. Kind of had me on tenterhooks a bit, because I thought we may have to declare ourselves beaten, because if you haven't got enough metal to do this job, then you really can't. That's it. You're really looking at a refret, which isn't something I've done before. So again, if I run into that situation, of course I'm going to learn how to do it, but it would complicate the job considerably and extend it by quite a lot of time. Okay, so there's me done. I've been up the length of the guitar and rounded off all the profiles of this guitar, of these frets. Now, what I'd like to do, if possible, is use this gummy rubber, and I need to follow or look at the actual instructions to find other possible ways of doing this, but I'm trying to just pull out any particles of metal that are currently stuck in the caught in the diamond coating. You know, if you get stuff jammed under there, then it will become less effective. And I can see some build-up of particles, and this isn't really. You can see some of it's coming off onto here, but it doesn't feel to me like it's really doing that good a job. It's also very, very hard to manipulate. I'm going to try and cut a little bit that might. It's also very hard to cut because it's rubber, gummy rubber. So I'm just trying to cut some sort of edge that's fat enough to get some kind of purchase on the surface, but thin enough to fit into this concavity. With a bit of luck, that will pull out some of the gunge. But the good thing is about this is if I didn't know how to do it, I could go back to the manufacturer, StewMac, and lodge a question, and apparently their customer service is quite legendary for helping out, even to the point where some tales I've heard where people have found this, even after a certain short time, started to wear out, they've been replaced without question, which is brilliant. So that's the kind of customer service I like to hear about. Okay, so you can see how long we're taking. A bit of extra time explaining things, but by and large it's still taking quite a while to get to this stage. Now we have a task called, our next task now is to polish out these frets so that they go from these scratched things, which you probably can't see very well, but these quite highly scratched things out. We need to smooth them out with sandpaper to turn them into beautifully smooth mirror finished frets. And to do that, I'm going to use some different strengths of paper, and this is the challenging bit. And as I said, I think at the beginning, I still haven't quite worked out the correct sequence, but I'm getting better at it. I'm going to use some 240 grit wet and dry paper. I'm going to use it dry. I don't want to gum this all up. So I've got some 240 here. I've got 600, 240, some 600, and I've got a set of micro mesh papers which then go from 1500 right the way through to 12,000 grit. I'm also going to chuck in a bit of, no, that's 1500. If I had some 1000, which I don't think I have anymore, I would use a bit of 1000 in this sequence. I seem to have kind of used all of that up, which is not the end of the world. I'll just jump straight, unless I can find a bit here. It's a blue colour and down on it. Okay. Maybe this is a little bit here. Okay, tiny bit. So there's my three, followed by my papers, and I'm going to use a combination of my fingers and this foam block with a sharpened edge. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this quite coarse 240, and I'm going to just roll up and down it, letting my fingers go up and over the up and down the frets. And the important bit about all of this is, whatever I do, I need to do it evenly to all the frets so that I don't end up wearing any part of the neck down more than any other. So I just need to be conscious of evening out that load. Also making sure I get to all of the frets as well, because it can be quite easy to overlook the ones at the start and the end. Now, this has always been a challenging part of the thing, because if we get this wrong and we start going to the softer or finer papers too early, what happens is we leave the scratches in there and just polish everything up so the whole kind of fret becomes really shiny, but it still has the scratches caught in the metal, and they will cause strings to stick, and it will make bending very, very uncomfortable. Well, not uncomfortable, it's just unpleasant. So the secret really is as simple as this. you don't want to move from your 240 until you're fairly confident that all these scratches are gone. But how do you know? Because right now it all it's building up quite a lot of dust, and it all looks a little bit shiny and it looks kind of nice. And now what I've learned is to get in the magnifying glass and have a really good close-up look. But what I've also found, a way of seeing a bit clearer, is to get a little bit of your 1000 paper, or anything even sort of finer than that, but 1000 will do. Get a little bit of your 1000 paper and just pull a swipe across the grain on every single fret, and I found that really quickly shows up the frets that still have the scratches in them. They show up as either clearly as scratches or as little black marks with the where the marker pen's still buried in there. Hello, welcome to the workshop. I'm just in the monocle stage. So I'm seeing many longitudinal scratches on the specimen. So this whole thought of, oh yeah, that's really good, let's go and start polishing, is still way off the mark. So the rule is we just keep going. Just all we have to do is make sure that we do the same amount everywhere, and that we spread the load evenly, and so that when we finally get to having removed all those longitudinal scratches, Claire's watching this like a tennis match.
I don't like the cat.
When we get to the point where all the longitudinal scratches have gone, what we also will know that we've taken off a certain height off the frets, but we've taken pretty much the same off all of them, because you can't do this without lowering them some more. But the idea is that we lower them all at the same amount, so that it's an even lowering.
Is it easier to do on just the neck?
Without the body?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, because you can put a bit more pressure.
Yeah.
A bit more pressure into it. You don't want to bend the neck too hard when it's still on the body. I'm just changing direction so that I'm paying attention to one end as much as the other. So again, we'll do this thing. We'll brush off all the. So this is a 60% uneven.
Oh,
fret.
there's my brush for my dust.
Yeah.
My dust.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So again, I've discovered over time that when you get to this stage, running one strip of very fine paper against the grain sort of dulls it again, because at the moment it's all shiny and it's deceptive. So when we do this, it dulls it long enough to spot the little tiny black marks, which are the pits, or the bottom bits of the trough, the scratches. So if you can see there's some tiny little pits, black marks still in there.
Yeah.
And that's not going to come out unless we get it at this stage. So, we must continue.
Look at your selection of glues.
Glues, lacquers, and so forth and stuff. Has Thomas gone into the sleep land?
No, they had a shower and just come downstairs to watch.
This is after a whole day of paintball in the woods.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember a very inadvisable time I played paintball once, after doing some illicit substances when I was much younger.
No, surely not.
Surely
Yeah.
I did, but they were the kind of illicit substances that made your heart race a lot, and entirely unsuitable for playing paintball all day in a hot summer's day in a forest. I thought I was going to explode. Served me right.
Not a good combination.
No. Do you think I'll be like Stephen Fry? Do you think somebody will arrest me?
Only if you go to Buckingham Palace.
Right, now, so what I'm looking at now is I can see loads of little transverse or longitudinal scratches, but I know now these are all caused, so pretty sure, if I rotate this into light, these are all now caused by the paper I'm running backwards and forwards. So I can officially declare that we are at a stage we can now start the polishing. And that's how it works.
There you go.
But if you don't, that's the difference between that attention to detail, is the difference between not getting a smooth, shiny fret that the string really slides over, and one that's gritty
makes sense.
Yeah, but I didn't. It took me a while to get it. Okay, so here we go.
Also need some eyes, I imagine. I'm going to make you a cup of tea now.
Thank you, my darling. So on to the 600s. Sounds like a poem. So the 600 paper now is much finer than the 240, obviously, and you can see that the focus now is to be coming from the scratches caused by the 240. We're now making them finer and finer by using the 600. We're now going to try and, well, we're heading towards the polishing stage. And what I would suggest at this stage is you can use the pointed block and let the block work up and down over the top of the fret. And again, making sure we get all of them, the first and the very last, in the mixture. Now, as long as you've got the main scratches out with the 240 paper, I found that you can kind of move on fairly quickly after that, because the bulk of the hard work is done, and what we're really on to now is the polishing part. However, that isn't the case if you've still managed to leave the scratches in place. You'll still be trying to take them out using this, and you'll keep looking and keep on working on it. But providing you've got the scratches, the main scratches out, by the time you start moving down your grades or up your numbers of paper, then you're into the polishing only mode. So I found, anyway. And a kind of lighter touch can then work. So once we're out of the way of 1000, then our little set of micromesh pads or papers, spongy papers, run from 1500 down to 12,000 in quite big jumps. Obviously, they're not going to. There's only about 9 of them, but we go with the 1500. And once you start on the micromesh papers, you get a real sense of heading for the final lap, or the last lap of the final leg. And again, the pointed foam thing gives you that sense of getting up and over the frets, so that there's a bit less risk of you putting any more flat spots back onto them. If you just use a flat block and shave them down like this, you're going to keep that, or you're going to reintroduce that flat spot on the top of the fret, which is something you don't want to do. Okay, 1800 out of the way. Moving on to 2004. As I say, you're polishing now. And by the time you get to around 4 to 6, you really are looking at the shine starting to build up. We're on 3,600 now. On to 4. When you're using micromesh papers to polish, 3236. When you use micromesh papers on lacquer or paint, it's around about the 4,000 mark that you start to see a real shine building up on lacquer. It's brilliant. You can sand something out with 600, then move to your micromesh papers and polish it back up. And quite often I have to do that in parts of the fingerboard if I have to, the neck, if I have to do a repair and fill in a little dent. I'll put a big blob of lacquer on, a couple of weeks to let it dry, and then I will sand it down and bring that part of the neck back to an absolute shine, so you'd never have known that it was filled in and re-finished. That's what's fantastic. I swear by these. I can't get enough of them. I've got a clean setup there for using on lacquer. I've got some dirtier sets that I've been using on metal. I've got a set that I use on wet and dry on painted guitar bodies. Just only about £8 or £9 I think for a set. It's just the best material ever. It's wonderful. So we're going from 6 now to 8,000. And it's the second to last one. And we could take these off, we could take the tape off now and just play this guitar. Put it back together again, of course, and then play it. But this is now beautifully shiny and smooth. I don't want to try it out by pushing bits of metal at it, across it, because actually you can immediately scratch it again by doing that. Which is why strings wear them out. Frets are soft metal. I've not yet come across one of the guitars that has its frets made out of stainless steel. Apparently there are some, and I don't think you can do what we've just done with them when they are, so it's a whole different technique. Again, another one I'd have to learn. So now I have my levelled and polished frets, and this is where I'm going to do another quality check, and this is where I've got to be absolutely ruthless with myself. Okay, so I'm doing a check on the surface of these frets, and I'm going to be completely honest that if I find even the slightest nick on the surface of these frets, I am going to go backwards in the process and spend some more time doing it, because thank you, because there's no point in doing this if you leave scratches in. Now I am seeing just the marks, like the marks of the shadow of the 240 grit paper going up and down in a longitudinal direction, and for my liking, I'm not sure I'd want to even be seeing them at this stage. It looks kind of shiny, but it feels good, but I'm thinking there's still some underlying scratching which I'm not prepared to stand for. So I'm going to go back a few stages, and I'm going to start at 2,400, and I'm going to do something. Actually, no, I'm going to go to 1,800, and I'm going to come all the way through the process again. But what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to do a certain number of backwards and forwards movements on each fret. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And I'm looking at that, and I can already see one or two tiny imperfections. Same again for each of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Again, doing it with my finger, make sure that my finger naturally gives under the pressure, and so it doesn't put a flat spot on the fret. 20, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, come on, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Hard to hold this stuff after a while. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, So you can see the obsession, my dedication to keeping it the same on all of these frets, and that's the critical piece here, is to get, don't run the risk of lowering the action on any fret, or lowering any fret so that we spoil the hard work we've done. Now under my little microscope here I can see on this fret here we have two tiny little dimples which look absolutely minuscule here, little tiny dots. They're minuscule, but I can tell you that those would show up when you're playing as a kind of slightly gritty feel. The truth is you wouldn't bend much on that note anyway, but I'm still not going to settle for less, so I'm going to do another 10 on each if I can just get it to grip, which is really hard. And that, it may be that what we're looking at this rate, it's too delicate, too soft to get rid of this. So I'm going to even have to step back to the 1000 grit paper, and I'm going to do a run up this fretboard with all doing the same. 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I can still see those bloody marks. It's really annoying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the whole process again. You're going to hate me with the papers, and this time I won't need to do quite so much because I'm pretty confident we've got all the little bits out now. I'm just going to whiz through this whole process now, and I'm going to hope that sorted out the last potential possible bits of gritty marks which could spoil playing. I want this to be as good as we can be. This is the bit people will remember when they play it. It will be, in fact it is the bit that the customer this weekend raved about to his guitar teacher, who then contacted me directly as a result and asked me to book in 2 of his guitars for treatment, and it was based on the smoothness of the frets as well as the intonation and the all-round playability. But yeah, don't, get this bit right. This thing here we're working on is the heart of the guitar, and it's where the guitar, it's where your relationship with the guitar really takes place. Yeah, the pickups make a sound and the amps are really good and the effects and so on and so on, but the bit that you interact with directly is here, and that's why I'm putting all of this time into it to get it right and not settling for second best on this. And if we get it right, then as I say, people will feel the difference and talk about it to others. I'll get to do more good things like this. Okay, so at the end of this I'm going to run straight on to polish with the Dremel, and then we'll be ready to take the tape off and unveil, and you'll see how much you'll be able to then sort of stop the clock and see how much time it took us to do this job properly. Yeah, groovy. 12,000, you really are polishing by this stage. You wouldn't see a scratch here unless you had a proper microscope from a 12,000 cloth. Okay, so we now know that we're going to pull out. Has that got any life left in it? Yeah, it has. I'm going to give it one more. Use it for one more time. I've got a Dremel collet, is that what they call it? And I'm going to use this to do a final polish on the frets. So it means unplugging our batteries now. They still haven't charged. So look, let's unplug that, whatever that was. Let's have a swig of tea. Now, slight danger with this Dremel thing is that it does get a bit messy at this stage because it spits this stuff all over the place. That's a natural centrifugal force of something spinning around, but it also spins around, spits out quite a bit of fluff. It just wears those things away really quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some of this stuff on manually and just blob it on, because it's just going to go all everywhere anyway. Let me just go all the way up the neck, and the idea is just to have a bit of stuff splodged around, and that will be enough to get this polishing process. If we wanted to do, we could do it as many times as we like, as we, going up finer grades until we get to the probably a G10 or something at the end. But I'm going to stick with just one coat of this. So you ready? If you're going to do this, the one thing to watch out for is that you do not hit the frets with your spinning chuck. That will be you back to square one, and it will put a gouge in there so deep that you'll actually not get it out again, or you may not have enough metal. So, two-handed. And just be conscious of the angle that you're working at, that's all. You can spend as long as you feel you've got on this. Can't do any harm. You be cautious that you don't go through to the masking tape to the fingerboard. But you can polish for as long as you feel up to it. I can see this wheel wearing down, the spitting bits of fluff off, but you'd be lucky if you get 3 fretboards out of a single wheel, no matter what price you pay for them. The quality is much of a muchness. They will wear an angle on one side, and you can take them off and switch them around to reuse the kind of little pointy bit that develops. But by the time you're doing that, you're one step away from getting a new one anyway. Again, the amount of the effect that this has on it depends on the compound you're using. This is grade 3 from. Oh, that was nearly me off the edge there. Grade 3, which is a fairly coarse compound. And if I wanted to, I could use a couple more, but when we say coarse, it's relative to the sandpaper we were using. This will be shinier by the time we finish this than it was with the papers, or the micromesh sheets. We're not far off now. You can see what a mess it's making. Very, very mucky. And it is really wearing a kind of like a brim on a hat, the way it's wearing this disc down, but it's fine. It's going to be nothing left of it by the time we finish this polish, so it's going to go in the bin after this. Okay, so we're sort of, yeah, you can see the shape. It's like it's almost coming to a point, but that's had it. That's done, finished, and it is, as I say, there's a lot of dust, and that's going to go everywhere, including on the guitar body. So we've always got to be ready to, you know, repolish. Now, get yourself a filthy rolled rag and give it a once over this way. It still won't take it won't completely clean it, but it will allow you to start pulling off. Now remember I said make the tags meet at the back. That makes it much easier to do that, and rip one side of it off, at least one side anyway, which will help the process of unpicking it all. And just don't be too worried, because this will always you will always get some goo and filth onto this nice neck. You've got to be prepared to give this a good clean off afterwards, and if necessary you may have to use solvent like the lighter fluid as well to get some of the goo off. But it's looking fairly clean. I think we'll get away with just the Mr. Sheen immediately after this. But I'm deliberately keeping the fretboard away from you so you can see the big payoff in a minute. Actually what it's doing is it's leaving stuff stuck. What you want is it to come off, damn it. You know, no way of really doing any of this without getting substantially dirty along the way. But it's all for a good cause, and like I say, if you spend 2 hours or so on it now, you won't do it again. Probably never do it again on this guitar, and as a result you can think of it, if you're going to do it at all, think of it as 2 hours invested in all those other evenings and days when you play your guitar and have a brilliant time, and it will be thanks to the time, thanks in no small part to the time you put in today doing this. That's how I like to see it. It's an investment for all those other days when you pick up your guitar and just have that brilliant time with yourself or with mates. So that's why if ever I'm tempted to rush this bit, I kind of think ahead to, you know, just for me recently in the summer, for example, all those great summer afternoons that go away. All those great summer afternoons where I've sat down on the deck outside with a cup of tea and just played for a couple of hours, pulled out my Beatles book or something, and just had a really nice play. And it's always, you know, always conscious when I do that it's as good as it is because I've put the time in some point in the past to make it play this well, and that's what we're doing here today. So we're very, very nearly there to behold this in all its glory. Masking tape's very inert stuff. Sometimes it leaves a bit of stickiness, which again you can always get rid of really quickly with the lighter fluid. But you can also do what I'm doing now, which is peeling it back quite quickly and easily when you need to. Right. Pretty much all done. So you can see it leaves a lot of filthy crap everywhere. I'm going to chuck this cloth down here, not to use at this point, and I'm just going to do a quick once over on the back. There's one tiny spot where somehow, yet again, some pen has got through, some marker pen has bled through the whole proceedings and got onto the side of the fretboard. I'm hoping that will come off. No, it hasn't, but I can either take that off in a minute with a bit of sandpaper, and actually I'll do that right now. We'll use the lacquer paper. I've got a fly in here now, which is really annoying me. So if I have to take that off, I'm going to jump to something like 2400 paper, and I can see that it's, you'd be amazed actually, you might think, why doesn't he use some solvent or alcohol or something? Trust me, it doesn't work. Right, so I've taken it away with that. You won't even notice the patch that I've scuffed up. It's actually, technically, between you and me, it's gone matte coloured, and now all I'm doing is just going to quickly use the rest of these papers in their sequence, and this will bring that whole area back up to a shine. And in fact, I can see already it's bringing it to more of a shine than this satin neck is. So I'm going to stop because I don't want a patch with this beautiful gloss finish where I didn't start out with one. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, however long that took, and I'm thinking that's probably about 2 hours actually, that is what it takes to level all your frets perfectly and to get them shining, polished back, ready to play, ready to go. An investment in the future of your playing the guitar. This is now a neck to be proud of. We're going to put it back together again. A fairly quick order because it's all in good shape. We don't need to do any major works to it. This fly is annoying me. Brilliant, I actually hit it with that. I give it a very kung fu, eh? Right, put my tea over there because I just don't want the flies to drop into my tea. That's just going to make me feel ill. Right, I've got a whole stash of little bits of paper which I'm going to put over here in the ever-increasing stash of little bits of sandpaper. Blow a bit over here to get rid of some of the dust. I know some of the dust from this job will have built up on this beautiful body already, but everything being in good order, I'm now going to tip over this body onto its face, but I'm currently still holding it in place. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to be sure that it starts going back in place in the right sort of exactly the right place. I don't want this thing to start going in wonky and have to snatch itself into the right position. I'm going to just drop in these screws one by one. Oh, sorry, I can put them all in, but I'm going to do opposite corners first, but I'm not going to do them up too tight. I'm just going to let this whole thing kind of start to bite a little bit, and then cross to the other diagonal. And if we're going in okay, these should then hold the whole thing in place, and we should be able to just stop and do a visual and make sure there's nothing obvious, wonky, out of sequence, sticking up. You can always tell if something's sticking up one side. You'll know that if you just ram those screws home, you're going to tighten the neck up in place, but you're going to get it in some sort of configuration you really don't want. So I have a torque setting on here, and I'm going to step it down to about 8 because I don't want too much power into this. And I'm going to let the screws pull the neck plate into place as well. And then once they're in place, the rest should be happy to go in place as well. And I can feel you can hear the torque kicking in before it's tightened it too far. Now that torque, I am just inventing how much that should be from previous experience. Some people think that if you over tighten it, that's when you are likely to cause cracks. I'm not convinced about that. Personally, I believe that we're still running here. I believe the cracks in the neck pocket come from blows or impacts on the neck itself, which are transmitted through the weakest part of the structure. And in the case of a square edged joint or a right angle joint, it's in the corner of that right angle. And youngsters won't remember this, but the old duffers listening to this will probably remember stories they may have heard or read about the history of the de Havilland Comet. Was it de Havilland Comet? Yeah, probably. In the 60s, that wonderful sleek airliner, which went beautifully well for a while, and until it had a couple of disastrous crashes, and then they fished some bits out of the sea one time, I think it was. They discovered that the windows had failed in the corners because they had made a fundamental mistake of using a square designed window, and under certain continuous pressurizing, depressurizing that the plane was subject to in its endless commercial activity, taking off and landing, the metal fatigue had, the stress had eventually given, caused the part of the plane, that part of the structure to give way and fail, and a whole bunch of people went out the window, and I think they knew it because, if you remember, if any of you remember it, they worked it out because there was an imprint of a penny. The Queen's head was kind of stamped into the metal on the side of the window, near the window. So as the contents of the cabin had gone out at an enormous speed at whatever height this aircraft was, it had smashed this penny into the metal so hard that it printed the Queen's head and various words into the metal on its way out into the cold night air before it fell to the seabed or whatever. So after that slightly macabre little anecdote, the point of that is, as they found out, it's where engineers, aerospace engineers, first really came face to face with the inadvisability of making aircraft windows square or have 90-degree corners to them. They learned the hard way that it was not going to be. It never was a good idea, and since then they never have. That's why all aircraft windows, or airliner windows, are rounded, oval, or circular. Right, I need some new cloths because I'm continually wiping a bit of buffing fluid, buffing cream back onto this, but that's looking so good. So, a bit of time and effort. I'm not going to do a final all over because every time I put it down it gets dirty again, but in principle everything about this is good. I'm going to, this is a quick polish and put this back on. There's nothing about this tremolo or the setup here that I need to worry about. I can put the plate back on now, and then once that's on we just go straight into stringing mode, and once we get the strings starting to go on, we put the neck under load, and once the neck is under load then we're going to start working on the action, and we're on the home run, whatever it's called, last leg, you know what I mean. So we probably go fairly quickly from this point. You can tell the condition, or can tell how well this guitar has been looked after by the quality of the screws that hold the scratch plate on. These are almost brand new. So I suspect this guitar has hardly been played. And to be fair, even before I did the fret levelling, there was hardly any wear on those frets that I could see. So it's a very well kept guitar, probably sat in somebody's bedroom, and the guy I bought it off played it once in a while, if that. So I'm going to just step back on that. That's a tiny bit too tight for my liking. Don't overdo it, Samuel. Okay, so we're nearly there, and again step back. This is just plastic we're putting down here, not steel. It doesn't need to be rammed home. So just taking it a bit easier. Right, flip her over. We are now into the restringing part of it, and let's just crack straight on into it. I think what we're going to find is we'll probably run out of video space in a minute, so I'm just going to keep my eye on this. But you won't miss much even if we do conk out right now, because all I'm doing is restringing it. What I will do is, if we run out, I will go in and dump off this video so far onto the hard disk and come back out for the final action setting and intonation part of the game, which is a really important part. And again, it's not going to be quick, it still takes its own certain amount of time to do. So while I'm here, stringing, my advice on stringing is run your string all the way through till it's almost tight, pull it back about 1.5 inches if you're dealing with a bass string, and then get your string winder on it and just pull that remaining bit tight, and then you've got a nice length that you need to cut off. At this stage, if you're doing it on a Strat, always check that before you tighten it any further, check that the string is clearly all the way through and wedged right the way up into the hole. Sometimes it gets caught on the lip, and if you tighten it up before checking that, you'll end up kind of squeezing a very, very big crimp into a string, which then jumps forward, and when it jumps forward, it doesn't not only gives you a bit of a shock, but it also jumps forward and brings the crimped bit forward, which then becomes part of the playing length of the string, which is not what you want. You do not want a crimped, weakened string as part of your playing length. So going as fast as I can go without making any mistakes. I talk about this every time I do this, but I remember the days before string winders. That's mental. We used to sit the guitar propped up. I used to just kind of crank away with your thumb and forefinger to get the strings on, and it just used to take forever. And you come away and your hand would be sort of locked with cramp doing it so hard. Morris, don't be a bad boy. He loves this part of the string fitting because he can then come and chase the string ends, which is one of his favourite games. Here he goes. Twang. Yes, favourite game. Oh, right, there you go. Get in there. So in order of events now, we put the guitar neck under load with strings, and we bring them up to as close to the, a pretty close tuning. Bearing in mind that for the first 10 minutes, 20 minutes or so, we're going to keep tuning up. We're going to keep stretching the string, keep tuning it again, because the strings are going to slack for quite a bit to begin with, and our job will be to keep on putting them under load, take as much of the slack out of them as possible. What are you doing, Morris? Once we've got them both bedded in, and there you go, jump forward there, just what I said we shouldn't have happened. Once we've bedded the strings in and got it roughly up to tune, then that tells us then our neck is under the kind of full load, the full playing load, and then we're going to, next step is to look at the amount of relief in the neck. When the strings are pulling it, it'll be under load, and we're going to adjust it to put any relief we need into the neck, or to take any out if it has too much relief. So our job at that stage will be to make sure that it's got the right amount of curve in to let the strings play properly. And a way of describing it, if you don't know, the strings don't, when you pluck a string on the guitar, it doesn't just sort of bounce from side to side. It kind of, you can imagine it going round from side to side, up and down, diagonal, diagonal. In fact, the best way to imagine it is think of the string as being like a giant skipping rope from when you were a kid. And and it's kind of going in a big circle. And just like the skipping rope when you're a kid, the circle that it goes round or describes is biggest in the middle of the string or the rope. Thank you, Morris. It's the largest, the circle. Oh, there we go. Damn it! This is caught on the edge. Watch this. This is what I don't like. I'm going to pull this now. It's going to pop through. Oh, hellfire! Morris, can you go away at this point in time? It's going to annoy me. There you go. Popped through, and it's made everything go loose. And thankfully, I hadn't tightened it up too far, so I hadn't put it under as much of a crimp as it might have been if I'd have just blindly gone on and tightened it. But that's exactly what happens with strats. String catches on that little edge if you're not careful. And it's hard to know because you pull it through and then you go up to the other end to tighten it up, and unless you keep it under pressure the whole time, you can't really know. There's no device you've got to hold it in place other than a friend who could be holding it here now, which I can't do. So it's now it could easily have dropped back. So I'm going to put it through here, go back to the other end and just double check it. Yes, where was I? Can't remember now, forgotten. Okay, so we are heading towards the interesting bit known as setting the action at the bridge end and the nut end if we have to, which maybe we have to. It looks fairly good on this the strat nut. Always tends. It's more strat nut is for me seems to always start off being closer to being right than a Les Paul or a Gibson nut. Okay, because the Gibson nut tends to be a bigger beastie. The strat nut is always a thinner thing to begin with, so it tends to be closer to being right from the start, but we'll see. Okay, so we've got the strings on. We don't know if they're anywhere near the right tuning yet. I've just clipped off all the sticky out bits. And the first thing I'm going to do is just gently put this guitar under a bit of stretch and just take some of the stretch out of the strings. Now, at this stage, don't be at all surprised. Whoa, what's that? Come on. Come on. Don't be at all surprised if at this stage the notes sound really bad, because you've got to remember that things we've changed are we've moved these around, and they may have put strings higher or lower than they were before, but we've also adjusted taken the hump out of the neck, so that will have changed the whole geometry of the thing. So things will have changed. Don't panic. If they have, we will adjust them back to what we want bit by bit. Okay, so I'm going to take a reference note from something. I've got a guitar in here with a good note on it. Let's call that a G for now. It's probably not right, but I would use my fantastic tuner that I used to use, my iStrobo Soft, until they went and upgraded it and ruined it. So, trying to get the stretch, get any stretch out of the strings to begin with, just helps. It will make getting your guitar into playing condition much easier, much quicker. Again, I'm going to take that G again from here, even if it's not quite right. Just use it relative. Okay, that will do for now. I'll keep pulling the strings as I go. So the first thing I'm going to do is, and I'm conscious we are going to run out of video probably. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the action better at this end, because I know that I've given myself more room by taking leveling the frets. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take go down to the bass string here, which currently is set almost to the top of its little grub screws, and a really high action, and I'm just going to physically, with the Allen key, and visually crank it down to where, much closer to where I want it. And I'm going to assume, for the purpose of what we're doing now, that the frets and the neck can handle that low level. If there are problems, or if there's something to do with the action which can't take this, then I'm going to deal with that when we come to it. But to begin with, I'm going to drop all of these settings. Now, I can see straight away this is a considerable change from what the people had it set on before. So that tells me one of two things: either they really loved having a high action, or, as we suspected, they were forced to have that high action for other reasons, which, as I said, I know to be typically the result of trying to accommodate ultra-high frets, and the setting of the action like this is one way around accommodating that, so the guitar sort of just about plays, even if it's not ideal. It's the only way you can get rid of those problems, is by setting this action really high. Rightio, still on the go. It's starting to get cold now, it's winter. Right, we have strings on, action lowered, going to retune roughly. Right, it's got, obviously still stretching in, it's going to be way out of tune. It's not important for me right yet. What is important is putting it a bit under load, and then the next thing we do is we check what's happening with the neck. So the neck has got a little bit of relief in it, probably not quite enough for the time being. So it's a mixture of three things. We're looking at the neck relief, we're looking at the action here, and we're looking at the action down here. At the moment this is still a little bit too high for my liking, so to take the last couple of tweaks out of this, we really have run out of any more height that we can possibly take out. We can take a bit more out of the following ones. Just try and keep almost the same shape going over the shape of the bridge, because we want to sort of retain something of the shape of the radius of the guitar neck. We don't want to go too extreme, because it's not hugely rounded, but I think it's I suppose for some people it is. It's more than it's a bit more rounded than a Les Paul, and a lot more rounded than some of the kind of heavy rock shredding guitars that a lot of people like. Okay, so to me that will do as an action at this end. Again, I'll reach in quickly. Right, so a couple of things. First of all, I think that we took quite a bit of relief out of the neck, or bow out of the neck to begin with, and I'm not comfortable that we don't put some of that back in because it feels to me like it needs it. So if we remember to get it out this time, let me think now, what did we do? We took the neck off and it went humped, put the strings on and it goes bowed a little bit. We still need to take it counterclockwise. It's interesting. This is one of the simplest things in the world and it confuses me every time. So I want to take a hump out. I want a bit more relief in this neck than it's got, so I'm going to do it a little bit more counterclockwise. And stop there. That looks okay to me. Now, so the question we've got here is, if that's set roughly okay for the time being, what have we got down at this end, and is it good enough? And the rule I work by, which if you've watched any of these other videos, you will have seen me talking about this just about a million times. However, if you haven't seen it or haven't watched any of the others, this will be a new piece of information, and this is where I now don't know where I put the capo. Hello. Why would I know? It's very handy. Okay, so the way I've worked this out is, I don't know if you can see how well you can see, probably not very well. Let's lower this down. Okay, so what we're looking at is the height of the string over the first fret needs to be at a certain value. If it's too high, then we find ourselves pushing hard down on the strings to get them to touch the frets, and that makes the notes that we're playing go slightly sharp and out of tune. And it can be so bad that it makes it really unpleasant to play. And the smallest amount of difference in height can make all the difference and make it really unpleasant to play. So what I worked out one day is you can either go and find the manufacturer's recommended numbers, or you can do something quite simple that I did, is put a capo on the first fret, and then what you do is you turn that fret there into your new nut, okay, and everything after that works and plays beautifully, right? Nothing chokes. You can play the chords without even thinking about it. You don't have to squeeze anything. No notes being pressed sharp. So the simplest thing to do is get your feeler gauge and just discover what that gap there is. It's not 0.25 of a millimetre. Imperial blades. Oh, what am I talking about? I'm such a such a plonker. It's not 0.25 of. I'm breaking this one here. I've got my imperial blades out. I want 0.25 of a millimetre, not of an inch. 0.025. Right, 0.25 millimetres, and as I run it through here, it snags, which tells me this is even smaller than that. So I poke out the other ones and I'll get 0.2, which I suspect is the one I tend to go for all the time. So 0.2 is just also, I wouldn't say it's catching exactly, but it's just about right. So I guess what I'm saying is 0.2 is what we're looking for here. Right? If we got it working with 0.2 there, we want 0.2 there when the capo's off. And actually what we've got is something else altogether. It's not a million miles from 0.2, but it's not 0.2. And you can see that when we put the 0.2, or I can see when we put the 0.2 underneath here, we've got some distance we could press down before we get to the 0.2, which is the optimum, or the ideal is probably a better word, ideal height of that string over the first fret. So there is only one way to achieve this. No, that's a lie, there's two. Usually more than one way. There's two ways to achieve this. The first one is we take off this whole nut out of the little slot, which is very difficult on a Strat because you end up breaking it. You could take the whole nut out shave it down, put it back in again and hope and remeasure and hope it's okay. As I said, very difficult to get the nut out without breaking it. Alternatively, we cut down each slot, and introducing my new into my armoury today, very first time ever, I have a set of files designed to closely mimic the strings that I've got on this guitar, from 9, 11, 24, 32, 42, sorry no, 9, 11, 16, 0.016 I should say, 9, 11, 16, 24, 32 and 42, and these closely resemble the string gauge that I've just put on here, the Ernie Ball Super Slinkies. So with that in mind, I'm going to focus now with the, if there's a bit of movement. That's about right. I'm not going to do any more with that. They're close to each other. The next one now can go down, so that's the D, and we'll put this one away. These are so much better. It's a lot of money, but I'm so glad I invested in them. You can't see this at the moment. Sorry about this. Let's try and bring it back so you can see. This is an absolute dream having these files. I started off obviously not in a position to buy them, and then finally realised that I needed to. So as with all things, you sort of go for as far as you can, using sort of simpler or cheaper techniques or whatever, and then reach the point where you've got to invest in the right things eventually. Okay, it's really hard. It doesn't quite work with the light where you can see it. I can't see it. Okay, not too far off. Yeah, still quite high actually. Okay, 24. Okay, that's quite tight, so I might just look for a one of these to just widen it out a little bit. Again, it is quite low, but yet not quite where we want it. A little bit of movement still there. Again, it's a very delicate part of the operation. You've got to be very careful to get this right. But you know, if you go in with the knowledge that you can always super glue it, and that's your get out of jail card. That's done, that one. Then you'll be alright. Now this next one is quite high. I've got a fair bit to go. Again, I'm slightly new territory here with these files, so I'm going to be really cautious as I go. 16. They're so fine I can't even see the blade on them, to be honest. And again, this needs slightly, I suppose, reaming out might be a good word. Oh, bloody hell. Hard to use. I think it was that one I was looking for. It's difficult to use because there's bits sticking out all over the place here. Right, keep that in the position I had it in. Go and drop the string back in, back up to tightness. And then again checking back with the shadows, in this case as my guide. Sorry about that view. Still some to go. Quite hard to get the gauge under all the other strings to check that you've got where you need to be going with this, but again, I'm going to just take it out a little bit with this small thing. Again, still still too high. You can see a number of ways you can tell. I'm looking for the shadow over the first fret, but also here I'm looking at the shadow over the actual nut itself, coming off the nut itself, just as it leaves, as the string leaves the slot. What I'm also going to do when I finish this is put a little bit of graphite powder into these slots as well, so that they, if they are a bit tight, they've got a bit of lubrication. Okay, very close to being there. I'm not sure I want to go any further with that. This is a tiny bit. I quite like it. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, there's hardly any movement there. Right, onto the B, and we're nearly home. Change the files out. Now, as I say, I don't have anything to support this one right now, so recognising these are very, very fine, I'm going to try and use them as lightly as possible. Again, remembering that they're quite fierce. Well, they may be quite fierce, quite a lot fiercer than I'm used to. Do we have one that matches this in this set? Hard to tell. Maybe that one, maybe not. It's probably more like a G. Go. Finished one. Oh wow, it's so thin. Might try something else at this point. Got one down here on this that might work. Right, tiny ones. Okay, B. Feels about right for the B. Okay, where are we at? Height. Tiny bit higher than everything else. A little bit more. I'm going to try and stick to the file this time, because if we get the holes start to wear out being too big, we'll have we'll create a buzzing around the nut, which will force us to fill it and try and rescue it. Okay, we still. What can we see? Tiny fraction. Going to get this exactly right. I guess it's always better to err on the side of stopping a little bit early, so we don't go too far, because we undo all the good work. Okay, let's have a look. Shadows, shadows, shadows. Okay, and the first fret is looking to me almost there, so I'll do a tiny bit on the first fret, the first string. We'll put this one away, and start working with a piece of paper, but it's just small enough to. It's better than working with those little wiry things, I have to say. I'm going to be very careful here. I don't think I need to take too much out of this at all. This is where I could really use my new pair of glasses, which are coming next week. So I'm a tiny bit high still on this one. I'm going to trust. Sorry about the view of this. It's crappy. We are almost there. We'll check out with our gauge. Yeah, that's about as good as we'll get. Alright, let's pull this back up. Let's have a listen to where we are. Oops, sorry. Sorry, we've got still some important stuff to do and I'm flipping you all over the place here. Right. Let's just tune it from here. Okay, we're tuned. Pull the last bits of slack out of it. I've still got a few. Right, we've got a really nice low action. I'm going to, whoa, that's nearly cost us some dents. I'm going to put some little bit of graphite into the slots now, only a tiny bit. It's quite messy stuff. Whoa. And I don't seem to be able to succeed without it puffing everywhere. So I need the tip of a blade to do it. I'm going to drop out. I think I need a bit more than this too, but I don't want it to go everywhere. That's it. So I'll make a little mountain of graphite here. Quite expensive this stuff, but it seems to be really good. So I'm just going to drop some into that slot there and just kind of chuck the string back in. Let it kind of go all over the place. Take the next one out, put it to one side, load up with some powder, drop it in, take the string back in. Third one. It's a bit mucky, it'll make everything, all the strings down there a bit grubby for a minute, but it's alright. Third string, drop it in. I can blow the excess away afterwards. Right. It's kind of get cold out here now. There's proper winter on its way. All the beautiful summer days gone. Quite tight these slots so that where they give you the dimensions being exactly the same as the string gauge, it's pretty tight. Still, I'm sure that it will acclimatise. We'll see it after a few days if it's causing any sticking problems. We'll just groove them, sort of widen them out a little bit with one or the other. One of the other what do you call them? Things. Welding nozzle foil things that we were working with before. Right, so now we have the action done. I'm just going to be pulling these a little bit to get them finally loosened up. Okay, so we've got that all done. Now we're going to put these things away and get on to the intonation part, which shouldn't be too hard at all. And what we need for that is a tuner, which I'm hoping that my app, even though it's not working as well as I'd like, I'm hoping it's still working well enough to do this. Otherwise it's going to be an absolute pain to go and find another one. So to do this, I'm going to need a screwdriver, I'm going to need my amp, I'm going to need, that's my screwdriver with the correct bits already on it, I'm going to need an amp up here, and I'm going to need an amp, I'm going to need my Foley thing, that's about it. And a lead, of course, which I'm sure we can get from up top. Right, lead. A bit crackly. So we want a clean sound, no effects, loud enough just to put the tuner next to it, and I'm just going to hope this works better than it's been working, because as I say, I'm mightily disappointed. We want input boost on, I think, strobe, classic, guided, See, now I don't know what they've done to it with all these fancy additional options. Right, okay, so here we go. This is the intonation part. Screwdriver, one that fits the thing at the back here, that's good enough. And what we're trying to do, so each of these strings has its own bridge saddle, which means that we have the opportunity to set the length of each string individually. Why do we need to do that? Because each string, although it works to a nominal never get any warning when the old thing conks out. Right, so the way we get to set this is we can tell when the string is the right length or too short or too long for this neck, and we can do that by using harmonics, well, using a tuner. So when the string is exactly the right length for this neck, the harmonic pinged note at the 12th fret, let's turn it down a bit, the harmonic note, when we tune it correctly, the harmonic note will be the same when it's fretted as when it's pinged. And you can see that it's slightly sharp when we fret it. And when it's sharp, it means the string is too short, so that to get the intonation set correctly, we pull the we wind it in to pull the bridge that way to lengthen the string, and that's going to actually make the string go sharp anyway, so we need to retune. Still slightly sharp, so we'll pull it in some more. Retune. Still slightly sharp. What we'll end up with when we get this intonated correctly is we'll end up with these bridge saddles in two groups of three, and each set of three, one is staggered back a little from the next. You'll see at the end. job done. Sharp again, so wind it in, and I can know visually where this is going to stop now. It's not going to be quite as far as the other one, but back to A. Nearly there. Maybe 1 or 2 turns, we should be there. That's good, that'll do. Pretty much okay on. Yep. Hello.
Hello. Sustenance for the worker.
Thank you, my dear. Cheese on toast and tea. So, since I know the 2 sets of patterns of these 2 groups, again, I'm able to predict the second set. Yes, it's getting colder out here.
It is getting colder.
Proper winter.
You're right.
Yes. My nose is cold.
Oh, hello, yummy. You're not staying? No. Yes. Clear. Stars.
That's spot on. I'm going to leave that there. Sharp. So I'll pull that back a bit. I'm just going back to this G. That one is slightly flat, so we're going to push that one out. Now, I was going to say it's as far as it can go, but it's actually not. What's happening is this screw, I need to knock it with something. Let me just, let's see what we can do. That's interesting. Ah, right. First time I've ever encountered this, I have the bridge has come so far out that it's the front of the bridge saddle is now touching the screw on the tremolo. I've got no more room. And actually locked. So actually it's slightly sharp, so we can bring it back in a bit. I think we might just be alright. That'll do. I'm stopping there. We're home. Oh. Dust caught in there. Right then, so still a bit of stretch coming in here. Intonation is set, falls in 2 patterns of 3, typically what happens. My fingers are cold now. Right, we're done, ladies and gentlemen. A bit of polishing to do on the outside because I've been eating cheese on toast and my hands are greasy. So, quick roundup. Here we have the lovely Squier Strat Affinity series in nice metallic blue, no scratches anywhere. Action completely set differently now because we've lowered the frets and made it possible. So we've got a nice low playing action, and we've got nice low action over the first fret, which means the strings are much easier to, or chords and notes are much easier to play there, and they don't go sharp, no risk of them going sharp. The intonation is good. Okay, that's good. I'm going to hang it up and I'll see you next time.